Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. A-10 Warthogs and Apache helicopters, all alike. Welcome to what will be my first developer's note video. Um, kind of just going over some information about my last Anthem. Um, for those of you who know me, that are my followers on my various social medias, you guys have probably heard about this project. You know, I don't really talk about details about it, but I tease a lot. I tease it a lot. I don't go into very specific details about a whole lot of the time about the project, but now I'm far enough into development where I feel like I'm comfortable enough with opening up and talking about it some more. So, here I am today. Here we are. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and give you guys a rundown of the project. So, my last Anthem was actually started from a fan game project I had that was created from another fan game project I had that grew too big for its britches. Um, the original concept I was going for with this story was, what if a Final Fantasy game happened in the real world? And I kind of just ran with it. Very, very obviously, goes without saying, I am highly, in terms of creative narrative storytelling, I'm highly inspired by the Final Fantasy franchise. They are quite literally the games that inspired me to want to get into video game development myself. So this started off as a Final Fantasy fan game project, but the narrative had evolved and developed so much over the course of me writing it and developing it that I just felt like making it a Final Fantasy fan game would be a disservice to it, to what I had created. So I decided to go ahead and move forward with it being its own original IP, without taking out the little bits of homage I pay, some big bits of homage I pay to the Final Fantasy franchise. Fans of the golden era, quote unquote, of Final Fantasy, which most people consider Final Fantasy 6 to 10, um, will probably be right at home with this project, because those games in particular I was looking to for the influence and how I was going to both tell the story as well as present the game in the world, even though it's our world. Um, it's a pretty massive game, pretty massive project, and because I want to get this out and have people experience the story as soon as possible, I am going to be releasing it episodically. It will be 3 parts, released in 3 parts that I am referring to. Again, to kind of lean into that inspiration, pay a little bit, of homage. I'm referring to them as discs. So disc 1 will be the first that I release, obviously. And the basic rundown summary I can give for the expectations players could have going into disc 1. It is quite literally the best comparison I could make. Would be, it feels like the love child of Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy IX's disc 1 segments. The game opens up in the ruins of Las Vegas. 3 years ago, an event called the Incursion happened, where a weapon was fired off that was meant to open up black holes on a designated target. but it malfunctioned and tore a hole in the fabric of reality and opened up a bunch of black holes all over the world, effectively ending society and the world as we know it. Um, in the wake of that, a secret cabal of evil political elitists from all over the world who were actually kind of steering world events, global events toward this event happening, um, organize and form what's known as the One Earth Federation and all but take over the entire world. There are small pocket resistance factions scattered across the planet, but for the most part, the Federation's taken almost complete control. Um, and that's where this game opens up. Jude wakes up to find himself um, in December of 2028. Um, he was actually at ground zero of the incursion, and to him, it's like he got ripped out of time and transported into the future. Um, and the world has turned upside down. He ends up reuniting with some of his old friends that he discovers are part of one of these little resistance factions. And before he knows it, he finds himself wrapped up in a conspiracy that could very well decide the fate of the entire world. So the opening of the game, I usually call it my Midgar segment, my Midgar section, because that's kind of what this part of the game feels like. That's where I am still developmentally in this project. I'm still in that Midgar section because a lot happens in a short period of time. A lot of stuff, a lot of narrative happens in a short period of time. And so it's a lot more of a developmental task for me to get this part done. But once I get the party out of Vegas and moving along, development should move along a lot more smoothly because the story segments are a lot more scattered between areas, between towns, more or less. From that point on, like I said, it'll feel a lot. Fans of Final Fantasy 7 and 9 will feel right at home with this because the pacing. I was especially very much paying attention to the pacing of both those games when I developed this segment of the game. And even though all three parts are telling one overarching narrative, each part will feel like more or less like it's telling its own self-contained story. Kind of like the Star Wars movies is what I could compare it to, because those are all telling one overarching story over episodic releases. That's kind of more or less what I'm going for with this. Each disc will tell its own self-contained story that will wrap up its own story arc by the end of each part and set up the beginning of the next story arc. With disc 1, it will be a pretty linear experience, all but chapter 1. Chapter 1, the game opens up with a lot of exploring the world. Not exploring the world, but exploring the community of Old Vegas. The player will be forced to complete a bunch of side quests, basically, more or less. Some odd jobs for some of the townsfolk. And then from that point on, after the first chapter wraps up, the game will more or less take the player by the hand and not just walk them or guide them toward the end, toward the conclusion. It'll kind of drag them, kicking and screaming. Um, I wanted the players to kind of feel as just like worn down by the time the story takes breaks as the characters themselves are, because there's not a whole lot of, in terms of the narrative, there aren't a whole lot of breaks these characters get. They don't really get a catch much of a break through most of this, and every time they do, it's very short lived. They're constantly on the run. And so it's going to be kind of a linear experience. It will stretch across from Las Vegas, Nevada, up to Salt Lake City, Utah. That's about as much access to the overall world that I will be giving players in this part. But there isn't going to be a whole lot of exploration in the game. It's I wouldn't even say it's wide linearity. It's pretty linear. It's pretty straightforward. At least this part of the game is. Narratively speaking, don't get me wrong, the rest of the characters will be given their chances to shine and show their strengths as characters and weaknesses as well. But narratively speaking, the focal point is Jude himself and trying to put himself back together, because all within an instant he seemingly lost his entire world and everything's upside down and everything ended and he thinks everyone's dead. And little by little, he starts to discover parts of his old life that he could start picking up the pieces and put his old life back together, or as close to it as he can put it back together. And with that, you see pieces of himself start to be put back together. He starts off the game pretty cold, bitter, jaded, very witty and sarcastic, but very, very closed off to even some people that were, some of his closest friends before all this shit. And you see them kind of whittle away at that little by little as the story progresses. Disc 2 will open up a lot more exploration, a whole lot more exploration. It will still be for the most part, a linear experience where it's going to be kind of directing the player narratively toward the end. But it will allow the availability for exploration, as well as more time for some of the other parts of the main cast to shine. Disc 2, the theme of disc 1 is finding yourself, self discovery. The theme of more like self rediscovery. The theme of disc 2 is camaraderie and trust. It's trusting those that are close to you. And with that being said, disc 2 will not focus entirely on Jude, narratively speaking, because of all the shit that's going to be going on in the narrative during disc 2. It will be jumping across multiple different perspectives and groups that are all doing their own thing all across the world. Jude's will very obviously be the A plot, and then you'll have, this person's group is B plot, this one's C plot, this one's D plot, so on and so forth. That will all kind of intersect and finally come together to bring together what I call the true plot that will begin at the end of disc 2 and progress on through disc 3 when the big plot twist reveal happens toward the end of disc 2. Not at the end. I'd say probably about 3/4 of the way through it. And then disc 3 will return back to Jude more or less being the focal point, but he will share the spotlight with another character. I will remain undisclosed right now because it will spoil plot. They will be established by the end of disc 2. That character will be established as a centerpiece of the plot. And as such, they will be sharing the spotlight with Jude in the final act of the game. But that will also bring all of the characters back together, united for one final stand. The beginning of it will still kind of have some jumpy points where you're still kind of going back and forth between different people doing their own things, A, B, and C plot, and so on, as you are. Or as you will, whatever. I'm tired. But, by the time it really picks up and everyone knows what the fuck they need to do, everybody comes together, and Jude, and again, said unnamed character, will be the primary protagonists, leading the rest of the characters in the final battle, the final charge. And there, you guys have a synopsis and overview of the entire project at this point. Disc 2 will probably be the most fun I think players will have with the game, because it will open a whole lot of different things, as well as extra little goodies for you to experience. I have for disc 1, if I can figure out how to fucking pull it off right, there is one mini game that is tied to plot. Disc 2, there are 3 total mini games that are tied to plot. Actually, 4 mini games that are tied to plot. And a bunch of other mini games I would like to do on the side as well. It will also open up the ability for players to kind of pick a romantic path for Jude. By the end of disc 1, each of the primary potential romantic interests for Jude will be introduced. And 2 in particular will have been established by the end of disc 1 to be romantic interests, 100% based off of plot. The others will be based off of subtle context, player chemistry. That I'm going to leave subtle and let players kind of pick up on. In disc 2, there will be 4 total romantic interests that players will be able to, based off of choices and stuff you make throughout the game, will be able to build chemistry toward. And once you get to a certain point, you can, different scenes will play out certain ways depending on who your romantic interest is, kind of like in Final Fantasy VII. But the date sequence, the whole dating mechanic, something similar to that. I almost dropped my phone. Take a swig off my drink here. My throat's getting a little dry. So, um, Disc 2 will be the most full fledged experience in terms of the entire little trilogy of releases I will be doing. Disc 3 is more or less just ending the plot. You know, driving the player toward the end, the final conclusion of the story. Um, Now moving back along to disc 1, I do not have a release date in mind. I just am working on this as I go. I was trying to set myself to a deadline, and that doesn't work for me. So I'm hoping to get it done within this year. Because again, like I said, after I get them out of Vegas, it will probably move along pretty quickly. Because a lot of the length of the game from there will be gameplay, will be the player traversing from point to point, from place to place. So a lot of the length of the game from there will be actual gameplay and not so much narrative. There's a healthy mix in the opening first 5 chapters of gameplay and narrative, but there's a lot of narrative that happens in the opening sequence. There's a lot that happens. So it's just taking me a while to get done, to get that part of the game done. Granted, I did have to basically restart this from square one. This is my third time having to restart development on this fucking project, and you know what they say, third time's the charm. So, I basically am not allowing myself to have any free time doing anything else these days other than working on this project to some capacity, whether that's working on screenplay, or hands-on with the game, or voice acting. Mostly just acting tests, because I don't have a proper microphone setup right now, just yet. I will be purchasing a decent recording microphone within the coming weeks so that I can record these lines properly. But as of right now, I'm just kind of doing them on my phone for fun and getting a feel for what I want to do for my performances, because I myself will be playing both Jude as well as Tenebrae. So I will be both the hero and the villain. And it's a lot of fun because they are two completely different performances. Two entirely different performances. Jude feels a lot more like... I mean, I wrote him to basically feel like me. To basically be me if I had superpowers. If I had, fucking demigod-like powers. So that's what he's written to be like. You know, he kind of starts off as a miserable asshole, but, I can be a miserable asshole when I'm not in a good mood. So, and those who know me closely know that very well. But for the most part, when you start seeing the real Jude coming out, you kind of, you see he's not so much of he's not a bad guy. Tenebrae, on the other hand, is, if he feels almost it wasn't intentional. The dynamic was loosely inspired by Cloud and Sephiroth, but he feels like Sephiroth at times. Sometimes, um, when I'm going through and playing him, it feels almost like I'm, like embodying the Sephiroth aura while I'm playing him. I am doing a vocal distortion over my voice too. So for that performance, so it masks my voice, and gives him that much more of an eerie, ethereal, dark presence. Um, because he's wearing like a full body set of Manatech armor that almost seems like it's alive. Um, like it's living, like it's part of him. Um, and yeah, he's a cool character. He's a cool character. I didn't. It's I kind of didn't have much of an appreciation for him when I first started writing him, but the more I started getting further along in the plot, the more I've learned to appreciate him as a character more and more and more and more and more. He's one of the most important characters of the entire story. Um, but especially when it comes to Jude's specific personal story arc. Um, but he feels every single time I have him, because I've gotten to a point now where he's starting to show up in scenes in development. Every time he shows up on screen, it feels like how it did in the original Final Fantasy VII. Whenever Sephiroth would show up, it's like, oh fuck, it's him, and I made the game, for fuck's sake. So like when I get to the point where I'm playtesting through some of this shit, and I get to the point where he shows up, I go, oh fuck, it's him. It's almost like I forget the scenes that he shows up in, because he does, especially in the beginning parts of the game, he shows up so suddenly and so abruptly. There's almost no, you get hints of him, like kind of like how Sephiroth was introduced, like, and you hear about him, he's mentioned, but you don't really, so you feel his presence, but you don't really see him. And when he finally shows up, it makes it's impactful. Um, so he is, his place in the plot. He is the right hand man of the Supreme Chancellor of the One Earth Federation. He is his go-to guy whenever the Chancellor has a problem that he needs taken care of, that he can't trust anybody else to take care of, and nobody else can seem to take care of. Tenebrae is the guy that gets called in, and that's why he's earned the title, the Executioner. He's known as the Chancellor's executioner, um, and he leads the Chancellor's personal special forces unit called the Death Knights. And they're made up of a bunch of people that were more or less experimented on, not quite to the same capacity as another organization within the Federation's little black ops units that they've got going on. Because there's one unit that is very much inspired by Soldier from Final Fantasy VII, and another that's inspired very much from the Turks. The group that's inspired by Soldier is called the Lunar Owls. They are all special candidates that were infused with mana and have superhuman abilities. Um, Much like Jude himself, but Jude is a freak show even amongst freak shows. He shows strength and power that exceeds even that of the higher class lunar elves. Um, then you've got Royal Flush, which are the more clandestine espionage. They do all the dirty work for the Chancellor. And then you got the Death Knights. Um, and the Death Knights are Tenebrai's personal unit, kind of like Darth Vader's 501st. And that's a lot of what I took inspiration for in his role within the plot was from Darth Vader. There's a lot of Darth Vader influence there, even in his design. Because I'm a big Star Wars fan at heart, at least the original 6 movies. Um, so when the game opens up, Jude's reunited with his friends, and these friends are basically gonna be his core party for like the entire story. Um, they're made up of his some of his closest friends that he had before the incursion, and they all kind of just, as they got older and went about just doing their own lives, they just kind of splintered apart over time, um, and reunited at the beginning of this story. Um, they are kind of his go tos, his ride or dies for most of the plot. But they consist of Nikki Marsden. Um, she's, for lack of a better comparison, she's kind of like Tifa to Jude's Cloud. Not in terms of personality, because she's feisty. She's sweet, she's caring, she's loving, but she's got a feisty side. She's got a bit of an attitude on her. Then you got Anthony Juarez, who is another one of Jude's close friends. They worked together, him, Jude, as well as the next character I will be talking about, Frankie. They all worked for a man named Sid Sherman. There's some more Final Fantasy influence for you there. Um, as part of his private security agency prior to the incursion. Um, and sorry, excuse me. I'm a little bit tired. Um, they all were really close. Him, Frankie, and Jude were basically like brothers. Formed a pretty close bond together. Anthony's kind of like the cool, laid back, relaxed guy. He kind of is the, no matter how shitty the situation is, he's the one that can kind of keep his head, um, and help everybody kind of stay focused when when shit seems like it's hitting the fan and everything's going to hell. He's the one that's kind of like, hey, blah, 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 blah. He's the one that kind of rallies everybody. The next character, like I said, is Frankie Velasquez. Francisco goes by Frankie Velasquez. He's another one of Jude's close friends. They work together. Frankie's kind of, I would compare him to like kind of the Barrett role, but if Barrett was a little more of a cheeky, cocky fuck, Frankie is a bit of a borderline arrogant asshole. Sometimes not asshole, but arrogant. He's an arrogant fuck. Um, he's he's a bit of a, he's not a comedic relief character, but he is the character that provides the most comedic relief out of the main party, out of the core starting group. He is the one that provides the most comedic relief. Um, he's very expressive and reactionary. Um, and that's usually what I mean by comedic relief. His reactions to certain events and certain things that go down can be pretty comedic. And then the last part of the core group is the daughter of Sid Sherman, Cindy Sherman. Um, she is more or less the group mom. She's a no nonsense, no bullshit, you know, southern gal. Um, she is a wee bit older than everybody else. You know, she's 40. So she's a wee bit older than everybody else, a little bit more mature, a little more grounded, and is not afraid to tell you exactly how it is. Like I said, she's kind of the mom of the group. She keeps everybody's heads out of their asses. That's kind of her job. um, there you go. I've been going along ranting and rambling about this for quite a while now, so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was informative. Throughout the course of this, I will be just kind of showing some screenshots in the background of the game. Just kind of giving you guys some quick little looks. It probably won't be, we'll be changing periodically all throughout. And yeah, so I guess I should go ahead and give some of the basic information about the game now instead of the plot and all the other things. So I am making this game, developing it using RPG Maker MV. That is the engine I am using. If I could manage to get a very successful Kickstarter campaign going, and I mean like that's pie in the sky, hopeful pipe dream type of wishful thinking type of success is what I've got in mind and what I'm referring to. I would make it very close to what Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was, just with a few tweaks. I would tweak a few things, like a day and night cycle, the ability to jump, um, have it have it play a little more like Kingdom Hearts in that regard. Um, Actually, that's kind of probably what I would do is blend a little bit of Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's playstyle together. Um, with the ATB system still being implemented. That's more or less how I would make this game. Is like the Final Fantasy remake trilogy. Pretty close to that. And it would still be in 3 parts. Because so much happens narratively in Vegas that I still feel like it would only take up about 10 hours of gameplay, even if it was um, 10 to 15 hours of gameplay, even if it was um, maybe even 20, even if it was a AAA high budget game. I could see it taking up about 15 to 20 hours of narrative, and then the rest of the game would be the rest of the 20 hours. Because it does. In terms of
story events. It takes up probably about half of disc one. The Vegas portion does. Um, but I am making it with RPG Maker MV for now. I would love to have a high budget and a team. It'd be wonderful. Square Enix, if you somehow stumble across this, I will wiggle. I will make this game Final Fantasy 17 for you. I will. I'll do it. It started off as a Final Fantasy fan game. I'd be more than happy to turn it into into an actual Final Fantasy game. So hey, if any of y'all have any connections with Square Enix and can shove this in their door, let's do it. Cause I'd be cool with that. I would be cool with that. But um, since I'm making it on my own for now, on RPG Maker MV, uh, it will play like a retro modern game with some play like a retro game with some modern gameplay developmental influences and stuff. Like I want to have it completely dubbed over if I can get the voice cast together for it. If not, I'll release it as is. Whatever. But yeah. It will be right now the only platform that I have 100% intentions on releasing this on is PC. I know of ways to export RPG Maker projects to Android and iOS, but the problem is with iOS having it actually be accepted onto the App Store. Android, I won't have any problems because if I can't get it on the Play Store, which is fucking easy as shit to do, and I've seen plenty of RPG Maker games on the Play Store. If I can't somehow, I can still put it behind like a Patreon wall or something, or like some kind of, paid service where you pay certain amount. Probably just $5 for disc one. That's all I'm going to charge, really. About $5. Pay $5 and you get the APK. Access to the APK or something, some shit like that. If I can't get it on the Play Store, it's really easy to get around that stuff on Android. But for certain, it will be released on PC. I would love to release it through Steam. But again, I will have like a little paid service set up on the side too. Like maybe Patreon or something. Some shit like that. And yeah, that's all I can really think about. That's all I can really think of. Oh, rating. This game, I kind of, even when it was a Final Fantasy fan game, I went into it with the intention of it being a grown-ups Final Fantasy game. So it is very mature. If I could make it a AAA game, it'd be pretty bloody and gory too. But it's a mature rating is probably what it's going to release with. It's got very strong adult language, different substance abuse, not in abuse and use, sexual themes, suggestive themes, violence, blood. Even in this RPG Maker version, there will be blood. Probably not a whole lot, but there will be blood. Yeah, It's going to be mature. And that just about does it. That's going to wrap it for here. Thank you all if you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so very fucking much, especially because like toward the end I was just like sleep brain, stream of consciousness, rambling about a lot of stuff. It was very relevant to the project, but just very much stream of consciousness. So I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all for all your support. I am looking forward to moving forward with this project and seeing how you guys all like it. I do want to say in closing, the trailer released today. As of today, we have me recording this today. I released the first official trailer of the game. No voices or anything implemented. I'm sitting on the demo. Like I have a demo. I'm ready to fire. Pull the trigger on it. I am just waiting on seeing how this voice casting process goes and seeing if I have any luck. That demo will be released soon. I will not say when soon, but soon. It could be sooner than you think because I might end up just getting impatient with the whole voice casting process and just saying, fuck it, we'll do it live and just putting the game out as is. Well, the demo out as is. And then maybe do a patch later when I do have a voice cast that implements the voice casts. But yeah, I'd say it's about an hour long. Going in blind, not knowing where you're going because there will be some branching paths and stuff. Going in blind, it will probably be about an hour long experience. It will be covering a full chapter of the game. So, at least an hour is what I'm anticipating for that demo. And I think Final Fantasy fans will especially have a lot of fun with that demo. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to go into details. If you've watched the trailer, there's your hint. But it's going to really, really make you feel at home. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you again for all your time, your support, and I look forward to catching y'all in the next one. Take it easy.